because of our human nature, we cannot be overcomers. That is not the intention of my physiology lessons. It's actually to emphasize that point. That as you cooperate with God and surrender and make that decision to put away sin, that God empowers and enables you. And as you repeatedly develop the right habits and good habits, that it becomes the opposite of the situation we find ourselves trapped in bad old habits and unable to give them up. Thanking the Lord for all the great light that He is sending us and hoping that we shall cooperate with Him. There's a work that God cannot do for us, and we have to do it for ourselves. He cannot force Himself on us, and He cannot force us to be saved if we are not having the desire to be saved. And I was walking past Brother Nyasha this afternoon talking to a couple of people, and I had him mention something in the direction of how, in order to get this message, you really need to apply, to exert your mental faculties to the limit. And so this is why we study these lessons, to understand how the brain works and how we can help ourselves. Someone asked me, are there any natural remedies that we can use to improve things like memory and concentration? And for me, what has worked is rosemary. There may be others that maybe you might want to try it out. If you're suffering from brain fog or struggling to remember things, of course that's not the ultimate solution, but it helps. So today I want us to talk about vital capacity. We'll start reading, Helpful Living, page 45. It says, God has provided us with constitutional force. And it says this force will be needed at different periods of our life. Then she says, if we recklessly exhaust this force by continual overtaxation, we shall sometimes be losers. Our usefulness will be lessened, if not life itself destroyed. So there's something that she calls constitutional force, which is given to us. It's lesson 6 for those who are the notes. And that this constitutional force is needed at different periods of our life. And if we recklessly exhaust this force by continual overtaxation, then she says, what will happen? We shall sometimes be losers. She's not saying that, if you recklessly use up that vital force, that there's a 50% chance that you might be a loser. But she says at some point in your life you will lose. And she says our usefulness will be lessened, and if not, the life itself destroyed. So I want us to just dig into this and try and find out what it is, and where it's needed in life, and how we use it up. So to illustrate this, we'll use an illustration. Let's say we want to travel from Harare to Johannesburg. Let's choose a car. Which car should we drive? A BMW. That's a scary car. Okay, but that's the one we've chosen, a BMW. Why have you chosen a BMW? Okay, it's fast. What else? Comfortable. It's comfortable, alright. Anything else? Does it have a strong engine?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's important? How far is Joburg from Harare?
1.4 kilometers. 1,000.
Almost 1,000? 1,000.
Yeah, just say
So I'll just say 1,000
1,500.
kilometers. And we only have one full tank to get to Joburg. Okay? So it's limited. It's just one full tank. So if we represent that on a graph, this being the volume of the tank, what should be on our x-axis? Okay, so when we start with the full tank. This will be halfway. Waterway and three-quarters. So how are we going to ensure that we get to Joburg with this just one tank? You're not permitted to read.
certain speed.
Okay, maintain a certain speed. Do you brethren agree? Okay. I've got two suggestions that we should maintain a steady speed. Is that what you're speaking? And take a shortcut. That's the other one was mentioned. What else?
On the slopes, put it in neutral.
Okay. Right, neutral. On the slopes. You all understand why we need to do that? So now, okay. Is maintaining a steady speed foolproof? But it's a good idea. Where you are able. How does that save fuel? Because I've heard that if you drive at a steady speed of 80, you end up consuming more than if you drove at. Okay, so even the speed matters. Eh? So which speed do you think we should choose? 60.
100.
We can hit one more. I carry necessary things that are going to
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say only the necessary. Okay, but we were protesting about the speed that the system suggested of 60. 100, are you guys happy with 100? 140.
I'll say 120.
120. Has anyone anything to add to the issue of the shortcut? Are you saying no shortcuts?
No shortcuts, yeah, shortcuts can sometimes prove to be longer.
Yeah, maybe the road is not so
Maybe
good.
the road is not so good, so at least.
Yeah.
On,
So we want to stay on the highway. So no shortcuts. Obviously, we go neutral on the slopes.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got good tires.
Okay, good tires. Yes, that's
saves-
very important.
that saves fuel.
Yeah, I'd rather make sure we should limit to only the necessary stuff. No carrying unnecessary things. So then we hope we can make it with one tank to Johannesburg. So just take this parable and just apply it to the vital force. Helpful living. I think that was reading paragraph 2. It says, God endowed man with so great force that he has withstood the accumulation of disease upon the race in consequence of perverted habits and has continued for 6,000 years. Counsels on Health, page 20. When men take any course which needlessly expends their vitality or beclouds their intellect, they sin against God. They do not glorify him in their body and spirit, which are his. Yet, despite the insult which man has offered him, God's love is still extended to the race, and he permits light to shine, enabling man to see that in order to live a perfect life, he must obey the natural laws which govern his being. How important then that man should walk in this light, exercising all his powers, both of body and mind, to the glory of God. So we all start up when we are born with a full child. How do we, so in terms, we've chosen a BMW, right, because we believe it's fast, and it has a strong engine, and it is comfortable. I think comfort is an important fact. How do we apply this to ourselves and the vital force that we get given? Because when a child is born, they are born with a certain vital force. You are all born with it. And how do we then translate this into this force? What are the factors that would, at birth, would be factors at birth to determine how far this vital capacity is going to take this individual? Health. Whose health? The baby's health.
Mother's health.
The mother's health. Okay. So that's. So where should I put that? Strong engine. Maybe the mother's health. What else? What are the things that should go into creating a healthy baby at birth? Yes, sir.
Maybe I could say the mother should be eating food that make brain development, so that the child, when he's born, may be able to have.
So you mean the mother should be doing?
I was meaning attaining their fastness.
Yeah.
Like memory, food for memory, like omega-3 fatty acid.
Okay, so you're saying diet.
Actually, the diet should be good, like
Prior to. Yes, of course. Any other thoughts? What goes into a baby? Drugs. For the baby? No. For the mother? Yes. So I guess all of this falls under the diet and everything. Any other factors that might influence this, other than the mother's condition?
Well, I believe the mother should not be stressed.
Okay.
Because it affects the baby as well.
So the mother's environment. Yeah. So the health and the environment of the mother is critical. Any other thoughts? Okay, let's carry on with our reading. Counsels on That, page 219. It is an error generally committed to make no difference in the life of a woman previous to the birth of her children. At this important period, the labor of the mother should be lightened. Great changes are going on in her system. It requires a greater amount of blood and therefore an increase of food for the most nourishing quality to convert into blood. Unless she has an abundant supply of nutritious food, she cannot retain her physical strength, and her offspring is robbed of what? Vitality. So actually, in fact, she's talking here about the mother before she even falls pregnant. So people who are in a marriage should not fall pregnant accidentally. You need to take time to plan, because even she mentions here, the labor of the mother should be lightened. because she will soon be carrying this parasite within her body that is going to suck her of all her forces. The baby becomes the priority once conception takes place, and it will suck up all the minerals and all the elements, and that's why so many pregnant women become so frail and so sickly, so anemic, that in the next statement you're going to see what it's going to do to the baby itself. So really it's a great sin that's been happening in the world with all these unplanned pregnancies. God requires us to plan things ahead, even something else. In fact, this mother should be well fed 6 months before she even conceives. Yes. It continues on to say, if the mother is deprived of an abundance of wholesome, nutritious food, she will lack in the quantity and quality of blood. Where is the baby being formed from? It's in the womb, but nutrition is coming through the mother's blood. Her circulation will be poor, and her child will lack in the very same things. Let me give an example. I think about 2 weeks ago, a mother comes to the clinic where I work, and actually the nurse saw the baby a couple of days before I went there. And when I arrived there, she's like, I just want you to look at this baby. I'm not so sure about it, but I just want you to look, and if you think the baby is okay, then it's fine. So when she brought the baby to me and unveiled the baby, you know, mothers like to cover up their babies. I don't know how babies breathe in South Africa. So, and the moment she opened up this baby, it was a skeleton. Skin and bones. I'd never seen anything like that. And I thought to myself, what exactly is going on here? So I asked the mother how old the baby was. The baby was a month old. And the baby's weight at birth was 2.9 kilograms, right? And at the time I'm seeing her, she's 2.4. So she lost weight. And she was very, very skinny. The skin was dry and leathery. But the baby was active and moving and smiling and trying to interact with the environment around her. But you could see it's a terribly deficient baby. So when I made inquiries into why this was the case, obviously she was going to be referred. Then the mother tells me that she had an operation way before. I think about 5 years before she conceived, she had a big operation on the abdomen. I think she got some kind of sepsis. So they opened up her abdomen all the way from the top of the bottom of the breastbone to the bottom of her abdomen. Opened her up. It must have been very serious because it left behind a very nasty scar. And you know what scar tissue does? It loses flexibility. It can't stretch. And how a girl like that would think to fall pregnant and carry a baby for 9 months, it just beats me. It just shows you how degenerate it become. There really was no space for this uterus to expand to the appropriate size. So in utero, this baby grew up fine, but lacked such a serious element that when it came out, that baby is not going to survive. Yeah, and it means that there was something, the circulation to the womb was so restricted during the pregnancy. And just because God has endowed man with so great vital force that he has withstood the accumulation of disease upon the race in consequence of perverted habits, doesn't mean that we need to be careless with the way that we plan our lives. A woman like that should never plan to carry a baby, because she will never, those babies are not going to survive. It's because there was the scarring tissue on the abdomen compressed the uterus that was trying to expand. And so the baby comes out with some serious metabolic disorders. So the baby is able to eat and able to pass through. The whole digestive system is intact and functioning, but the baby is not able to appropriate the nutrients for herself. So she can eat all she likes, but she's literally starving to death. Yeah, something went wrong during the process of when the cells begin to divide and then change and shape into this baby, something went drastically wrong. So the maternal influences are very, very critical, and they contribute much to the vital force that we are given, that we start life off with at birth. So it's the difference between choosing a BMW and maybe an Uno, as we are starting off on this journey of life. Sister White talks about genetics. She says, parents may have transmitted to their children tendencies to appetite and passion, which will make more difficult the work of educating and training these children to be strictly temperate and to have pure and virtuous habits. Many suffer in consequence of the transgression of their parents. While they are not responsible for what their parents have done, it is nevertheless their duty to ascertain what are and what are not violations of the law of health. They should avoid the wrong habits of their parents and by correct living, place themselves in better conditions. Okay, so it doesn't matter what we are born with. Actually, once you are out of your mother's tummy, you have a responsibility to keep the law. We can't always blame our genes. And I just wanted to demonstrate how there is an interaction between the environment. What did we just say? Environment? Yeah. And the environment and how it can change our genes. We all know about diabetes. So we have a family here. We're going to call it Generation 1. They don't know anything about health at home. They eat all kinds of food, including dairy and animal food. That's in the first generation. And these people have no diabetes. They don't get sick. They don't suffer from diabetes. But they have children who in the second generation, we call that generation 2, they still consume dairy products and animal foods. They also don't have diabetes. But in dairy, cow's milk especially, there's a 17 amino acid. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So you find out proteins together, you get an amino acid, you get a protein. So this 17, it has this chain of protein that's found in dairy products. Has 17 amino acids in it. And this protein here is almost identical to a protein found in cells that are called islets. It's a long word, islets of Langerhans, but I'll just call it islets for simplicity. These are the cells in the pancreas. What is the pancreas? Anyone know? It's a gland. It's a gland? What does it do? It produces what? What does insulin do? It regulates the sugar. After a meal, insulin is released in the blood to get the sugars out into storage so that it doesn't shoot up in the blood circulation. This insulin is produced by the islets. Those islets have a protein that is almost identical to the one that's in dairy milk. So in this generation, when they are consuming dairy products, they actually mount an immune response against this protein because it is detected as a foreign body in the circulation. So the body mounts an immune response against it. So although they don't get diabetes, this change in the immune system gets coded in the genes. And then in the second generation, generation 2, they have this gene mutation. And the mutation is that when you see cells that have this 17 amino acid chain, you destroy it. So their immune systems, when they are born, when these people in this generation are born, they mount an immune attack on the 17 amino acid cell. They don't get diabetes, but in the third generation and the fourth, when these babies are born, they have an immune system already primed to attack anything that looks like that. So the immune systems will go and destroy the islets. This person will not be able to produce insulin. So in this generation, they develop diabetes. And it's, I think, usually manifested in childhood. So usually young children who have diabetes is because their islets cannot produce insulin. They have an absolute lack of insulin. So they develop diabetes. They have no mechanism of regulating the sugar. But where did this problem begin? It starts here in the first generation. So that's why before you do anything, yesterday as I said, consider the third and fourth generation. And that's why Ellen White is telling us that many are suffering in consequence of the transgression of their parents. So, okay, so we've chosen a BMW. Hopefully this mother is healthy, she's not drugged, she's prepared herself for 6 months prior, and she's in good health. What's in the environment that we need to worry about?
Chemical.
Yeah. Anything else? X-rays, radiation, so we call that radiation. That's why pregnant women cannot receive X-rays. What else? Pollution, yeah. I guess pollution and chemicals are related. You can think of many things, really, that affect a mother. And the brother mentioned the diet also, very important. So this is the input. The input is the maternal influences and the genetics. Can anyone think of anything else that we might have left out? Okay. Let's look at the expenses. So that's input. Now we're going to be looking at the side of this picture and see what things we can do to ourselves once we are born to reduce our vital force. Do you think of anything? Can I go back to the very first statement that we read? That God has provided us with constitutional force which will be needed at different periods of our life. If we recklessly exhaust this force by continual overtaxation, we shall sometime be losers. So how do you think you can overtax this vital force? Because we need to identify this so that we avoid it. What are the things that spend this vital force that you can think of? Unhealthy food. Okay, how when you eat something unhealthy.
Yeah,
okay.
The choice of food that we take in, once we take in nutrition, anything that's not nutrition
Is a burden. These are our expenses. It's in the diet. If we eat food that is devoid of nutrients or that has toxic chemicals, the body has to expend energy detoxing or trying to get rid of those substances from the body, and that is vital force being spent. So if we obey God and eat simple food, which is palatable and without genetically modified products or food chemicals, preservatives and things like that, you are saving on your vital force. Okay, so diet is there. What else? Why? Lack of exercise.
Just there dormant and means
How would that?
some muscles
Some
are not
muscles
working.
are not going to be primed to work. Okay? I would say if your heart rate is very low, exercise of course contributes to this. Heart rate variability, remember I spoke about it? Yes?
If we do not get enough rest, we're going to lose the whole ability.
Yeah.
Our body is not going to be able to work properly.
Okay, so just think about the 8 laws of health. You can come up with all kinds of suggestions. But going back to the heart rate, we said last time that the faster your heart beats, the more you're using up your vital capacity. Because it's, the more fit you are, the lower your heart rate is. Think about it. How many times in your lifetime do you want your heart to beat? Just think about it. If you can reduce that and still remain healthy and vibrant, you want to do that because you're saving on the contractility of the heart muscle. So a low heart rate is good. If you begin to exercise, you will notice your heart rate dropping. And so, and of course the differences between the heart rates when you're walking and when you're lying down, that change doesn't need to be too drastic. If it's too wide, then your heart is struggling to keep up with you. Also your blood pressure. The higher your blood pressure, the more you're using up your vital capacity. So you should just make sure it's around 120/70. Even your breathing rate accordingly are actually mentioned. They call it respiratory rate. How many times should you breathe in a minute? Do you know?
15, 20.
It's about 16. And you will notice if you have a good sense of your body, and when you're about to get sick, your breathing rate goes up because you're struggling to maintain good oxygen levels. So 16 is ideal. If you're sitting and resting, your breathing rate runs about 16 breaths per minute. Yeah. Great stuff. About paying attention. Cortisol stress. You want to reduce cortisol stress, so you want to use up your vital capacity. Sedentary lifestyle. You mentioned that, Mr. Muriel. Let's read about that. Sedentary lifestyle. God designed that the living machinery should be in daily activity. But in this activity or motion, it is preserving power. So by exercising, you're actually preserving power. How expensive do you think disease is on the vital capacity? Disease is very, very expensive. I think it's on the same level with cortisol stress. Any stress drops your lifespan. I don't know by how much. I can't tell you that now. But every time you stress, you're reducing your lifespan. But disease, very, very expensive because the immune system really sucks up all the minerals and nutrients and usually leaves us weaker than we were before. I mentioned here air and noise pollution. Any ideas how that happens? Air and noise pollution.
If you're constantly with the noise that affects your ears, but not only your ears, it eventually gets to your brain.
Your brain has to process all of that. I don't know how many of you live in the cities, are still in the cities, but there's always this background noise that your brain has to process continuously. The traffic and all of that. The absence of that stillness that you experience in the countryside All of that noise, because the brain has to process it, causes overtaxation. So we're looking at things that cause overtaxation in the system. The whole body, causing it to break down, causing it to be worn down and pressed down all through your life, you know. So pollution is one of those. The other one is media. I'm sure nobody watches TV here or reads newspapers. Some newspapers are good. But have you noticed how, I don't know if they do it here in Zimbabwe, but in South Africa, they like to circulate Sun magazine. Is this Sun magazine or newspaper? Daily Sun. They circulate Daily Sun in the townships, but you'll never find it in the suburbs. Can you think why they do that? Have you ever noticed that that's the case? Like, you're not going to go and find Daily Sun in a nice rich suburb, but you find it everywhere in the townships, in the lower economic classes. Why do you think so? What's in Daily Sun? What's in Daily Sun, let me tell you? It's stories about murders and theft and rape and all those evil crimes. That's all you find in Daily Sun. And people love to bring up all those stories. And witchcraft and witch serpent swallowed.
Yes, we do have one.
You do have one, I'm sure you do. And then you have these financial reports in Sunday Times that are only circulated in big suburbs.
But it's not,
Where rich people live.
ours is not like particularly targeted at certain.
Okay, in SA it's like that.
And people buy it.
Sun,
You choose
sun.
to buy it. Ours you choose to buy it.
But I believe these stories, yes.
My sister, to be honest enough, Lord is so kind. Instead of the TV and newspaper, we have our cell phones home. Even in rural areas where I live, we spend much of our time on WhatsApp reading stories that are not true and those that they are reading. Similar to the stories that are found in newspapers. So what we need to do is to guard the avenues of our.
And to be aware that those things are overtaxing the soul. Even WhatsApp, just try and switch off your WhatsApp and you will see the difference. I think that Satan is creating all these. It's good, we need to communicate, I guess, but I think there's a level where we need to begin to think, is this taking up so much of my time? You find yourself in touch with life events that you really don't need to know about. You know, if someone sends you a WhatsApp and they share a story for you, it's exactly like what's happening in the newspapers. If you read a story about somebody that has had a traumatic experience, you're going to experience stress through that. And you're going to produce cortisol. And the thing has nothing to do with you. You don't even know that person. You've never met them. I'm telling you, it's like when you hear about a tragic death. As humans, we sympathize with each other naturally. You're going to stress about that. And you're going to think, being exposed to all this evil. Yeah, so sometimes WhatsApp can end up, putting pressure on our lives that is really not necessary. I'm not saying we should switch it off, but just consider what it's doing to your life. I myself think it takes up too much time. Because you end up worrying about things that you shouldn't be worrying about, just because somebody sent a chat. She talks about cold food. In fact, before cold food, an overworked digestive system, I think Sister Charity has already alluded to that. We're not going to go to that. But cold food, she says, I do not approve of eating much cold food for the reason that the vitality must be drawn from the system to warm the food until it becomes of the same temperature as the stomach before the work of digestion can be carried out. So digestion will only happen if the food is brought to the same temperature as the body. Then the digestion begins. So we shouldn't eat food that's too hot, or cold food particularly, because your stomach has to warm it up first, and it's drawing all of that strength and energy from your vital forces. Where do the vital forces come from? This is all physiology. I'm not trying to be theological about it. Your body is at a certain temperature, around 36. You're warm-blooded. We are warm-blooded. Where does that heat come from? Where do you think it comes from? Think about the BMW. It will give you an idea. From the heart. The heart contributes in circulating some vital resources needed to generate energy. The cell. This heat is generated in the cell. In the cells, there's a nucleus that has all the DNA, but there's something called a mitochondria. It's a powerhouse. It's the powerhouse of all the cells. All the cells are busy generating heat to keep you going. And what happens in here is exactly what happens in a car engine. How does a car engine turn on and move? What do you need? We're going to need fuel for our BMW. What else do you need? Sorry? Car battery. Yeah. What will the battery do? It will generate a what? When you ignite the engine, what actually happens?
Power.
There is a power.
Power.
Power. Eh? Where does the power come from? From the battery. Okay, the battery provides the spark. But after the spark's been created, how is the energy produced? Okay, that's right. You know about combustion, yes? Yes, combustion, and then you have fuel, which must combine with a spark generated by the battery, which must combine with oxygen. There is no burning of fuel without oxygen. So you need that unleaded fuel, you will need a spark, and in the fuel together with the oxygen in the presence of a spark creates an explosion of energy. That process happens exactly in the same way in the mitochondria. That's why you breathe in. What are you breathing in? The oxygen. And then what's our fuel? Glucose. Yeah. So when glucose and oxygen combine in here, then they create that heat. And that heat is intended to keep you alive because all your body processes must happen at this temperature. So your body must continuously be maintained at this average temperature, between 36 and 37. So if someone is heating up and getting a fever, it's a sign that something is not right. And you know why that happens? It's a really wonderful mechanism that God has given us. Is that when you're sick with some bacteria or viruses, what happens? The body temperature goes up. Why? Because that environment, when it goes up to about 38, that environment is unfavorable for germs. Germs begin to die when you have a fever. So a fever is not always a bad thing. It's part of your immune system, your defense mechanisms to try and fight off the invading organisms. So otherwise, if you're fine and you're not sick, your body temperature will always remain the same, whether it's hot or cold. There are variations in terms of the day of the time of the day, or in the cycle of things, but generally it's between 36 and 37. And that energy is produced in the mitochondria. So when she's talking about the sapping of these vital forces, when you eat cold food, now your body, instead of maintaining your body temperature, has to go and warm up the food. And this is one of the reasons why people's lifespans go down because of eating cold food. The next one is in Healthful Living, page 49, too much study. They closely apply their minds to books and eat the allowance of the laboring man. Under such habits, some grow corpulent because the system is clogged. You should not eat much food if you're not physically active. You don't deserve that food. If you eat it, it's going to clog your system. And a clogged up system means a what? A beclouded mind. And then now we're wanting to understand the message with a beclouded mind is not going to be possible. Others become lean, feeble, and weak because their vital powers are exhausted in throwing off the excess of food. Improper clothing, secret vice, and rearing too many children. I want to talk about rearing too many children because people don't really talk about this. And it's such a critical aspect of our experience as Christians. In this few minutes that are left, the work of creating a baby, okay, maybe I shouldn't call it creating, but the work of conceiving a baby is extremely expensive. You've got two cells coming together, then they begin to multiply greatly. But what brings this about is a function of the human life that consumes so many minerals, including zinc and calcium and magnesium. These very same minerals are very crucial when it comes to brain function. I showed you earlier that without calcium, a neuron cannot initiate an electric current to flow. So what tends to happen is people who don't practice temperance, where it, pertaining to marital privileges, you don't practice temperance. These people, these individuals have been shown to develop chronic zinc deficiencies. They become chronically zinc deficient. And zinc is one of the minerals that's highly required by the neurons. So what tends to happen is, because people have lost sense of temperance, they end up becoming what? Mentally beclouded. So in our Christian experience, as we are trying to have a mind that is well balanced, we need to also consider this fact here. And ensure that things are being done within the limits of what God has put in place, what's acceptable, even in a marriage relationship. Drugs are very expensive on the body. Sick people who take these drug poisons do appear to get well. With some, there is sufficient life force for nature to draw on, so far to expel the poison from the system that the sick have a period of rest. Having a period of rest, recover. So we know Sister White discourages the use of drugs. Every single drug, it doesn't matter how mild it is a toxin. Yeah, and every toxin that gets into the body has to try and get rid of it. And in many cases, in many instances, what two organs are most affected by drugs? The liver. Every time you eat food or consume anything into the digestive tract, as soon as it's absorbed through the intestines, it goes straight to the liver. Straight, it must go there first before it circulates. And when it gets to the liver basically just looks out for any toxins that it can, grab and try to break down. Either add something to it to make it less toxic, or break it down into smaller pieces. And then, only then, is the food released into circulation, and it will eventually end up in the kidneys. The kidneys filter out all the rubbish that the liver has processed. Sometimes the liver gets overwhelmed and is unable to process these products, and people suffer from liver problems. Or the skin becomes sallow, because your three detox organs are your liver, your skin, and your kidneys. And Sister White tells us if one is is not used, the others become overused, overtaxed. For example, if we don't dress appropriately, many of us are wearing artificial fibers, right? I'm not sure if you're aware that much of the fabrics that come out are actually plastic these days. A plastic fabric does not allow for ventilation. The skin is the biggest ventilating organ in your body. All of it is full of pores. When we wear artificial fibers, anything other than linen and cotton, it means that our skin is not functioning. Therefore, all those toxins that would have been released from the skin have to be processed by the liver and the kidneys. So the liver and the kidneys are overworked and overtaxed, leading to a depressed vitality. So, yeah, I know cotton is very expensive. I don't know many people that can afford to wear cotton every single time. But these are things we need to consider. How much time do I have? 5 minutes?
8 minutes.
Okay, I'll go through the next few. High levels of free radicals, oxidative stress and toxins. We talked about toxins. And we've spoken about pollution, air and sound pollution. Then she talks about long discourses and prayers. Some pray too long and too loud, which greatly exhaust their feeble strength and needlessly expends their vitality. Others frequently make their discourses 1/3 or 1/2 longer than they should. In doing so, they become excessively weary. The interest of the people decreases before the discourse closes, and much is lost to them. And when here she's talking about, when we have our discourses, they shouldn't be too long. That's why I think we keep our studies to 1 hour in this prophecy camp, so that the brain is not exhausted, because that also wears down the vitality. Sleep deprivation, I think Sister Charity mentioned this, and we've talked about sleep on a previous occasion. But just to note some key points that we have not mentioned about sleep. It is during sleep that pathways form between nerve cells. Remember yesterday I drew something that looks like that. We studied a lot, getting lots of pieces of information, and somehow we need to learn how to connect them. So it says here that it's during sleep that pathways form between nerve cells in your brain that help you remember new information. Sleep deprivation leaves your brain exhausted, so it can't perform its duties as well. You may also find it more difficult to concentrate or learn new things. The signals your body sends may also come at a delay, decreasing your coordination skills and increasing your risk for accidents. You know why drivers are advised to take a rest. It's because they begin to manifest coordination problems. When you're sleep deprived, this is what happens in the brain. Also, a slowness, a delay in even thinking. I'm not sure if some of you have noticed this. When you're so tired, there seems to be a delay in thinking. But it's very critical that we understand the importance of sleep. Because without sufficient sleep, you're not going to be able to make all the connections in your brain. So the information will be there, but you're not able to use it. You can't use it unless you can coordinate it, unless you can compound it, unless you can bring it all together. It just lies there in your brain, uselessly. While you sleep, your immune system produces protective infection-fighting substances like cytokines. It uses these substances to combat foreign invaders like bacteria and viruses. So a person who does not sleep well has a poor immune system. Sleep deprivation prevents your immune system from building up its forces. If you don't get enough sleep, your body may not be able to fend off invaders. And then it also affects two digestive system hormones, leptin and ghrelin, which control hunger and fullness. And in the West, it's been shown that many people who suffer from obesity actually are lacking in sleep. When you really investigate the problem, it's lack of sleep. And you know what? The issue of sleep deprivation is not just about staying up late or waking up too early. You might go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up at 4 and still be sleep deprived. You get that? Have you experienced it? Especially for people who live in the cities. All that background noise going on in the background as you're sleeping, your neighbor playing music, all this traffic. It actually is the reason why so many of us wake up tired. Your brain may be alert, but you have this fatigue, that chronic fatigue, because of living in the cities. And your brain has to process all the background noise pollution. So just investigate your environment. We are also advised not to sleep with cell phones in the room. Cell phones disturb sleep, even when you're not using it. So you're advised to charge your phones at night in the sitting room, in the next room, not where you're sleeping. It will disturb your sleep. And also artificial lighting is another problem that disturbs sleep. So that's why I say, you might be sleeping 8 hours, but you're not getting enough rest. So we need to consider those facts. Also, the last point I'm going to make now is that in the world out there, you see this problem of distinguishing the genders. This is becoming more and more prevalent. It is because hormone production happens at night. The hormones that make a man different from a woman are made during the night when we're sleeping. So when sleep is interrupted, some people may end up confused about their hormones and about their children. But don't you think people in the city are chronically sleep deprived? I think so. It's not the full explanation, but it contributes. So just for us to see the necessity of sleeping and resting. It's not just about sleep, it's also that you get the rest that you should be getting, so that your brain will be able to do the work that God intended it to do. Shall we pray? Father, I pray that you will strengthen us in keeping the laws of health, especially pertaining to the gift of vital capacity that given us, that we have perhaps abused up to this point, and are desperate to recover, so that Lord will be able to receive these truths, understand them, and give a reason for our faith. May you continue to bless every effort that is made for us to be wiser unto salvation. Thank you for hearing our prayer this time in Jesus' name. Amen.